I remember August like a faded film reel, trembling under sunlight. The air above Los Angeles shimmered like it had something to say. I was 23, chasing songs instead of sleep. Guitar strings cut into my fingers, but I kept playing. Music was the only thing that ever stayed. The cafe smelled of burnt coffee and rain that never came. Faces blurred, conversations drowned beneath the amp's hum. Then she clapped. Once, softly. It wasn't loud, it was real. And somehow, that small sound found me in the noise. That's the night everything began. She sat in the back, still as a photograph. Her hair caught the yellow light like dust in an old projector. I forgot the crowd, forgot the lyrics halfway through. All I saw was her, and the silence that followed her gaze. Her smile didn't rush, it lingered. The kind of smile that made the world quiet. My throat tightened. My heart missed a beat. I looked down, strummed a final chord. When I looked up, she was still there. The kind of presence that feels written, not found. And I swear the city itself paused for her. We met again outside, under the flicker of a broken sign. The street was empty, but the air still buzzed with sound. She told me her name. Emily. From New York. She said she chased light with an old Nikon camera. I said I chased songs that never stayed. She laughed, soft, sincere, dangerous. Her eyes were the color of a city before rain. She reached into her coat and pulled out a cassette recorder. Say something, she whispered. I said, it's too hot to be real. She hit stop and smiled. Perfect. We sat on the curb, drinking cheap cola like it mattered. The pavement was still warm from the day. She talked about moments people forget to notice, about the beauty in things that don't last. Every word sounded like music without melody. I wanted to record her voice just to keep it. Cars passed, lights flickered, time slowed. She looked at me like she already knew the ending. When she left, she didn't say goodbye, just smiled. And I knew I'd hear that voice again, somewhere between August and forever. The next night, I played again. Same cafe, smaller crowd. But I wasn't playing for them anymore. Every lyric felt like her name spelled in sound. I didn't look up often, afraid she wouldn't come. Halfway through my last song, I heard the door creak. And there she was, camera slung around her neck. She didn't sit. She leaned against the wall, listening. Her smile said, keep going. So I did, louder, cleaner, alive. When the lights dimmed, she clapped once again. It felt like the city had finally listened. Afterward, she showed me photos she'd taken of me mid-song. The grainy kind, where light spills like secrets. I told her I looked better than I sounded. She said, no, you look exactly how you sound. That line stuck with me for days. We walked down Melrose, the sky bruised with orange. Every streetlight flicker felt like punctuation in a poem. She handed me one of the prints, a little blurred. I like it imperfect, she said. I smiled. Then it's perfect for me. And that's when I started believing in accidents. We started meeting after my sets, no plan, no time. She carried Polaroids in her jacket, moments frozen mid-laugh. Each one she gave me felt like proof I existed. We'd sit on the roof of an old parking lot downtown. She'd take a photo every time I said something stupid. I started saying a lot of stupid things. She said my laugh didn't match my eyes. I told her her camera didn't match her smile. She said, then we're even. The night wind tangled her hair into poetry. I started wondering what she saw in me, and if it was real. Once, she asked what I'd be if music failed. I told her, Someone who still hears everything too loudly. She didn't laugh. She just looked away. A Polaroid clicked between us. The moment caught. The photo came out blank at first, then slowly, our outlines. Two ghosts under a sky that refused to darken. She said, maybe some moments don't want to be developed. I didn't understand then, but I would. Some silences have meaning too heavy for sound. That photo still sits in my drawer, half faded. Maybe it always meant to disappear. Weeks passed, and her voice filled every cassette I owned. Little recordings, laughter, fragments, street sounds. Sometimes she'd talk over my songs, ruining them beautifully. Once, she said, if you ever miss me, rewind. I didn't know I'd have to. Every tape hissed like the city breathing through static. I'd sit in the dark and listen until dawn. Even silence sounded like her between the noise. Music didn't heal anymore. It remembered. Every note carried her ghost in its echo, and I didn't know how to stop listening. One night, she called from the airport, her voice trembling. I have to go back home, she said. New York, just like that, a continent away. I wanted to say something profound, something final. But all I said was, will you record it? She laughed, a crack through the line. I already did, she whispered. Then the static swallowed her words. I kept the phone pressed to my ear long after the tone. That night, even the guitar refused to play. And August never felt warm again. Days turned into quiet weeks. The cafe felt smaller without her camera flash. Even my chords sounded hesitant, like they missed a cue. People clapped, but I couldn't hear them anymore. It was like performing to ghosts. One night, I played her favorite song and forgot the lyrics. The crowd waited, thinking it was part of the act. I smiled, pretending it was, but inside, everything had gone silent. The city lights outside blinked like tired eyes. And I realized I was no longer playing for anyone. I tried to write new songs, but every melody led back to her. Even the air had her rhythm. I'd find her notes scribbled in my lyric book, little hearts. Sometimes I'd tape one to my mirror, just to remember color. But every morning, the ink faded a little more. One night, I took all her photos, spread them on the floor. They looked like a film reel unspooling, memories mid-frame. I wanted to burn them, but couldn't. Instead, I packed them in a shoebox, marked it somewhere in August, and put it beneath my bed, where old songs go to sleep. I started writing letters to her, never mailed them. Each one began with, "You wouldn't believe how quiet LA feels." I'd write till dawn, ink bleeding into the paper like smoke. The words weren't meant to reach her, just to keep her alive. Every sentence was a photograph I couldn't take. Sometimes I'd record the letters on tape, whispering between breaths, like she was still listening somewhere behind the static. The sound of her name on tape was softer now, like it was learning to forget. I stopped counting the days she'd been gone. Time only moved when I played her songs again. Then, one morning, a Polaroid arrived. No message, no return address, just an image of a rainy New York street. And on the window, my handwriting. If you ever miss me, rewind. I stared at it for hours, not sure if it was real. Maybe she found a way to send memories through time. Or maybe I'd sent it to myself, in a dream. Either way, I kept it on my piano. The ink started to run when sunlight touched it. It looked like the photo was crying. Maybe it always had been. August came again, slow and blue. The the kind of month that carries old perfume in its wind. I went back to the cafe. It looked different. New owner, new crowd, same wooden stage. I ordered her usual drink out of habit. The cup stayed untouched. A young singer played one of my old songs. I didn't tell him it was mine. He sang it faster, brighter, without the ache. And I thought, maybe that's what healing sounds like. A song sung by someone who doesn't know it's about loss. That night, I walked to the ocean. The same horizon she once said looked like forever. I brought her photo with me, the blank Polaroid. Held it up against the waves until it blurred. Salt water and memory, both erasing, both forgiving. I whispered goodbye, not to her, but to the silence. Because silence had started to sound too much like her voice. When the tide reached my shoes, I let the photo go. It floated, then disappeared under the moonlight. Somewhere out there, it's still drifting, like a song no one remembers writing. I passed that old alley where she first filmed me. The bricks still smelled of rain and gasoline. A busker stood where I once played my first song. He used my melody. Slower, deeper, like a heartbeat. For a second, I thought he looked like me. Maybe that's what memory does. Loops itself until it feels true. He caught my eye and nodded, like he knew. I dropped a coin in his case, a quiet thank you. His voice cracked on the same line mine once did. It was the most beautiful sound I'd heard all year. Echoes, playing in perfect time with regret. I followed the sound till it faded into traffic. Each horn, each step, felt like a rhythm we'd left unfinished. I realized the city had been singing all along. Maybe it wasn't her I missed, just the harmony we made. Grief, I learned, is a duet you sing alone. Still, I hummed her favorite refrain under my breath. It fit inside the noise like a secret prayer. Some strangers smiled, not knowing why. Maybe they heard it too. The ghost between notes. I didn't cry this time. I just let the song end, softly. Years later, I found her name again. On a vinyl sleeve. A record she'd produced, hidden under stacks of old jazz. The cover showed a skyline at dawn, maybe New York. I played it on my father's turntable, careful of the cracks. Her voice filled the room, older, softer, still gold. She spoke between songs, about time, about forgiveness. And when she said, "We were all just learning how to stay," I felt my chest tighten, like a held-back cord. The needle skipped once, a heartbeat caught in wax. I closed my eyes, and it felt like she was still filming me. Only this time, I didn't look away. When the record ended, I didn't replay it. Some stories sound better unfinished. I stepped onto my balcony, city lights blinking below. August wind brushed my face, carrying faint piano notes. Somewhere, another musician was starting our song again. I smiled. Not sad, just grateful. Because even endings have their own rhythm. The stars flickered like static on old film. I whispered, "Good night, New York." Then turned off the light and let the music fade for the last time. Morning light spills through the blinds like a half-remembered song. The record still sits on the turntable, needle resting in silence. Coffee brews in the background. The sound feels like company. I hum a line from her song without realizing. It's softer now, like memory has worn the edges smooth. Outside, the city stirs awake. Traffic, pigeons, laughter. Everything sounds alive again. I think she'd like that. Not the noise, but the way life keeps improvising. I write a new melody on an old napkin. For the first time in years, it isn't about her. Still, she lives between my verses. like ink you can't wash out, no matter how many drafts you try. I don't fight it anymore. Love isn't meant to be erased, only rewritten. Every note I play carries her echo, gentle, distant, and I let it stay, a small haunting. The kind that makes silence feel like music, the kind that keeps you human. Maybe that's what she wanted all along. Not forever, just a song that never truly ends. The apartment feels larger these days. Maybe because I stopped keeping things I don't talk to anymore. No stacks of photos, no old tapes waiting for rewinds. Just sunlight, a plant I forget to water, and my guitar. Sometimes silence sits beside me like an old friend. We don't say much. We've both heard enough. I strum a lazy chord, nothing special, but it fills the room just right. Not too loud, not too lonely, like balance finally found its key. I smile, small, real, unforced. Outside, a couple laughs in the hallway. Their footsteps echo against the same walls that once held my grief. Funny how spaces don't forget, they just soften. I think of her sometimes, but it feels like remembering a movie. You know how it ends, but you still love the soundtrack. That's how it is now. Her story lives in me like background music. I don't turn it off. I just let it play while I cook, or clean, or breathe. Because letting go doesn't mean silence, it means harmony. Every morning now begins with sound. Buses sighing, horns arguing, kids racing to school. The same noise that once hurt my ears feels human again. I watch the street like a film I've seen too many times, except this version has color. A street vendor hums a tune I almost recognize. It's off key but honest. That makes it beautiful. A painter sets up near the curb, her canvas half covered in gold. I wonder what she's trying to capture. Maybe the noise, or maybe the stillness hiding beneath it. Either way, I understand her. A breeze lifts through my window carrying the smell of rain. It's the same scent from that first August night. Funny how time repeats itself, not in moments, but in senses. I close my eyes, and the city plays its symphony again. No spotlight, no camera, just rhythm. I realize I'm part of it, one note in the crowd. Not the solo anymore, but the harmony. That thought doesn't hurt. It feels right, like coming home to a song you forgot you wrote. The world hums in tune, and for once, I hum along. I wasn't looking for her that day. Just driving through late-night traffic, windows half down. The radio crackled, static, ads, then a song faded in. At first, it was just a melody, simple and low. But then, her voice, unmistakable. Older, slower, but still carrying sunlight in the vowels. I froze, hand hovering above the dial. She was talking between verses, just like she used to. Words about love, distance, and unfinished songs. I laughed quietly. Of course, she'd find me through static. Even the universe knows her timing. The DJ said the track was recorded years ago, a live version from a lost tape. Finally found. I pulled over near a diner, headlights bathing empty asphalt. The city was asleep, but her voice filled the car like warmth. When she sang the last line, the music faded into silence. For a second, I thought I heard her whisper my name. Maybe it was the wind, maybe the station signal. But it didn't matter. I smiled, turned the key, and drove on. Not chasing the song, just following its echo home. I hadn't been back to that cafe in years. But August has a way of pulling you toward the past. The sign was new, the colors brighter, but the smell, the same. Fresh espresso, rain on pavement, faint guitar chords. I sat by the window where she once filmed me. Someone else was singing on stage now. A new face, same dream. He sang out of tune, but with his whole heart. I smiled. That used to be me. For a moment, I almost reached for my old notebook. But instead, I just listened and let the song carry her memory for me. The owner asked if I wanted to play a set. I told him maybe next August. He laughed, not knowing what that meant. I stepped outside. The sky was gold and bruised with sunset. Everything looked familiar, but lighter, like the world had finally exhaled. I looked toward the corner where she'd once stood with her camera. The light hit the glass just right, and for a second, I saw her. Not the ghost, not the ache, just her smile, framed by summer. Then the wind shifted, and she was gone, gently. Weeks later, I walked past a park downtown. Children were playing near a man with a small guitar. He was strumming a melody I knew by heart, ours. But he'd changed it, added laughter between the chords. It wasn't sad anymore. It danced. A little girl clapped out of rhythm, smiling anyway. The notes drifted toward me like wind-borne confessions. I didn't stop him. Some stories sound better in someone else's voice. I just listened from across the street, hands in pockets. It felt like saying goodbye, and meaning it. Later that night, I wrote her name one last time. Not in a song, but in a letter to myself. Thank you for teaching me how to stay. The words didn't hurt. They healed. Outside, the city hummed its lullaby again. Every window glowed with small, living dreams. Music leaked from passing cars, all in different keys, and somehow they blended perfectly. Maybe love is like that, never perfect, just connected. I turned off the lights, the room full of quiet rhythm. And somewhere in August, the song lived on. That night, I dreamed of her again. Not the way I used to. No tears, no distance. She stood on that same street where summer began. Camera in hand, smile unhurried. But everything was golden, like the world had been filmed on sunlight. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Music played somewhere behind us, faint but familiar. It wasn't sad, just slow, a lullaby for memories. She turned once, as if to frame the shot. And in that click, I felt peace. Not the kind that ends things, the kind that forgives them. When I woke up, the room was full of morning light. I swear I could still hear the faint hum of her camera. The coffee machine hissed like applause. Outside, the city began again, another August day. I sat by the window, notebook open, pen ready. But this time, I didn't write about her. I wrote about light and sound and staying. Because sometimes stories don't end, they echo. And sometimes love doesn't leave, it lingers. Somewhere in August, she's still filming. And I'm still playing. A week later, I was cleaning out old boxes, tapes, film rolls, faded ticket stubs, the archive of a younger me. At the bottom, beneath postcards and dust, I found it. A small cassette labeled in her handwriting. Play me when it's quiet. For a long moment, I just stared at it. The ink was smudged, but the curve of each letter was still hers. I dug out an old player, its batteries nearly gone. Pressed play, static filled the room like snowfall. Then her voice, soft and close. "Hey," she said, laughing once. "If you're hearing this, it means time worked." My heart stopped and smiled all at once. She spoke about moments, not big ones, just the small kinds. "Remember the rain, not the goodbye," she whispered. "I hope you're still playing, even if it's not for me." Her voice cracked near the end, as if the tape had aged with her. I didn't cry. Not this time. Because she wasn't gone. She was here, in every sound wave. When the tape ended, the player clicked off softly. I left it running, just to hear the silence breathe. Outside, the city hummed again, steady and alive. I whispered back to the static, "Yeah, I'm still playing." And the silence almost answered. I never sent the letter. It stayed folded inside my journal, the one with the coffee stains. I wrote it one night when the world felt softer, when the noise outside couldn't reach me. It wasn't about missing her anymore. It was about remembering without pain, about letting love live without needing to hold it. Maybe, I wrote, we were meant to meet, not to stay. And for the first time, that line didn't hurt. I closed the journal gently, like tucking in a memory. The pen rolled away, like it understood. I walked to the window and watched London wake. A boy on a bike crossed the bridge, her favorite route. The city glowed gold, like forgiveness itself. Somewhere, across an ocean, maybe she was seeing the same sun. And that thought was enough. I smiled, not for her, but for who I'd become. Love didn't end. It evolved. It changed shape, but it never left. And in that quiet moment, I realized she wasn't my chapter. She was my handwriting. And the story was still being written. I walked along the street where it all began. The cafe was quiet now, the stage empty, lights dimmed. August air smelled like sunlight and old memories. I traced the outlines of the bricks with my fingers. Everything was familiar, yet different. Softer. No urgency, no ache, just rhythm in the quiet. I paused at the corner where she once stood. The wind caught a few fallen leaves in a lazy dance, and I realized I didn't need her here to feel her presence. Somehow, she had stayed in every chord I played. And I smiled, knowing the song would never end. I turned toward the horizon, city lights fading into dusk. Somewhere, a piano note lingered from an open window. I breathed deeply, inhaling sunlight, exhaling the past. Every memory felt like a photograph, softly illuminated. No more longing, just gratitude for having felt. The streets, the songs, the echoes, they were mine now. August would return, and with it, everything I'd learned. I hummed the melody we once shared. Not loud, not sorrowful, just alive. The city whispered back in perfect harmony. And somewhere in August, I finally found home. Rain tapped lightly against my window that evening. Each drop a tiny drum, a rhythm I hadn't noticed before. I opened my notebook, the one with her Polaroids tucked inside. Music spilled from the old stereo, soft and familiar. I hummed along, letting the notes catch the falling water. Outside, the street glistened under yellow streetlights. A car passed, and the sound blended into the melody. I thought of her, not missing her, just feeling her presence. Every chord, every drop of rain felt like conversation. The city didn't sleep. It listened, and I played for it, quietly, entirely, freely. Later, I stepped outside with my guitar strapped to my back. The rain didn't soak me, it welcomed me. I walked past empty streets, puddles reflecting neon signs. Each reflection looked like a memory slightly distorted. A child splashed in a puddle, laughing without caution. And I laughed too, a soft echo joining the rain. I strummed a chord, the sound mixing with the drizzle. It was imperfect, but perfectly alive. Somewhere, she might have been listening. Somewhere, the city sang along. And I realized music never truly leaves. It follows. I passed the apartment she once lived in. Windows still framed the sky in golden morning light. I pressed my hand to the cool glass, imagining her smile behind it. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt different. The street smelled faintly of coffee and rain-soaked pavement. A cat darted across the sidewalk, pausing to look at me. For a moment, I felt her presence in the smallest details. The air was quiet, but alive with memory. I hummed a melody she once whispered to me. A breeze carried it along the empty street. And I realized some windows aren't about seeing. They're about remembering. I continued walking, notebook clutched against my chest. Every page held fragments of laughter, chords, and soft regrets. I paused at a cafe where she once filmed me. A new owner smiled as I looked at the empty stage. I didn't need to play for them. I played for myself. Every note bounced off the walls and floated into the street. Children laughed nearby, unaware of the tiny concert. The city listened anyway. It had always listened, in its own way. I smiled, letting the memory live quietly in each chord. And somewhere, August felt eternal again. I wandered into the park as the afternoon sun softened. Children ran past, their laughter harmonizing with distant birds. A street musician played a familiar tune on a worn guitar. I stopped, letting the notes wrap around me like an old blanket. The leaves whispered in rhythm with his chords. For a moment, it felt like the city was breathing with me. I closed my eyes and hummed along, small and hesitant. No one noticed, no one cared, and that made it perfect. The melody was mine and everyone else's at once. A breeze lifted a few fallen petals around my feet. I smiled, letting the sound linger longer than the day. I sat on a bench near the fountain, guitar on my lap, strummed softly, adding my own touch to the street song. A couple paused to listen, nodding without speaking. I didn't play for them. I played for the echo itself. Every chord reminded me of laughter, sunlight, and rain. Every pause held the memory of her voice. Somewhere, the city hummed back, a quiet audience of life. I played until my fingers tingled and the sun began to fall. The notes drifted toward the horizon, invisible and weightless. For the first time, I felt that music could carry a soul. And maybe, just maybe, hers was still here, listening too. I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside, envelopes stacked neatly, each one a whisper from the past. Her handwriting curled across the paper, familiar and warm. I unfolded the first one slowly, careful of the fragile edges. Each word carried sunlight, rain, and laughter from long ago. I read, without urgency, savoring the cadence of her voice. Some letters I'd never seen before. Some were drafts, notes never sent. I smiled at her small sketches in the margins. A coffee stain blurred one corner, proof of mornings she had lived. I held them close, letting the past breathe beside me. The drawer smelled faintly of old paper and hope. I ran my fingers over the stack, feeling stories layered in ink. Some letters made me laugh, others made me pause quietly. It wasn't grief anymore. It was nostalgia, soft and kind. I placed them back carefully, as if tucking them into a memory. The sunlight shifted, illuminating the desk in warm gold. A bird tapped the window, startling me slightly. I hummed a line from her favorite song without thinking. The letters didn't need to be read aloud. Their presence was enough. I closed the drawer gently, carrying the weight of them lightly. And somewhere, August lingered, as it always had. The piano stood where I had left it years ago. Dust settled softly on the keys, waiting patiently. I sat down,
fingers hovering, unsure if they remembered. Then a chord whispered beneath my touch, hesitant but alive. Sunlight streamed through the window, warming the polished wood. I played a line from her favorite song, slow and deliberate. The notes stretched into the room like soft conversation. Outside, the city moved, oblivious to the tiny concert. I smiled at the imperfections in my own rhythm. Somehow, it felt honest, and that was enough. The music didn't demand anything, it just existed.
A breeze fluttered the curtains, brushing against the piano. I added another line, creating harmony with the sunlight. It wasn't the song we shared, it was mine now. Every note carried laughter, rain, and golden afternoons. I didn't think about her, yet she was everywhere in the sound. The room felt alive with echoes of the past. I played until my hands tingled and the shadows grew long. Somewhere, a bird sang in tandem, perfectly off key. I stopped, letting the final chord linger into the warm air. For the first time in years, I felt completely at home. Music, memory, and light, all in quiet harmony. The cafe looked smaller than I remembered. The awning was bright, freshly painted, almost cheerful. I pushed the door open, greeted by the smell of coffee and old wood. A young barista smiled, unaware of the history within these walls. I took the same corner seat, the one closest to the stage. The stage was empty, but I could still see her there. Sunlight streamed through the windows, dust motes dancing in golden rays. I traced the edge of the table with my fingers. It felt like stepping into a memory that had learned to breathe. No ache, no longing, just soft recollection. I smiled quietly, letting the past fold gently around me. A record player spun a familiar jazz tune in the background. I hummed along, careful not to disturb anyone. The world felt lighter here, framed by warm wood and quiet laughter. A couple laughed nearby, sharing a croissant and a joke. I imagined her smiling at them, invisible and warm. My notebook rested open, a page half written with chords. I strummed lightly, just to test the echo of my own melody. The notes blended with the music, soft and unassuming. No one noticed, yet the room seemed to hold its breath. August lingered somewhere between the coffee steam and sunbeams. And I realized some places carry stories, even when people change. The sky burned orange and violet as I stepped onto the bridge. The river reflected the fading light, like molten glass, beneath me. Footsteps echoed softly along the wooden planks. I paused, leaning against the railing, watching the city breathe. The wind carried the scent of rain and exhaust, familiar and comforting. Somewhere, a street musician played far below, blending with the hum of traffic. I hummed a line of melody she once loved, quiet and unassuming. The water moved slowly, carrying the reflections of lights and clouds. I realized bridges aren't just for crossing rivers. They're for holding moments suspended, for seeing both sides. I exhaled, letting the weight of yesterday drift away. A couple walked past, hands intertwined, smiling without care. Their laughter was a reminder that life moves forward, gently. I took a few steps, letting the bridge guide my stride. Every lamp cast a golden pool, illuminating the path beneath me. The city seemed to hum, in perfect harmony with my heartbeat. I strummed an imaginary chord, in the air, syncing with the distant guitar. August lingered, in the fading light, soft and persistent. I whispered a quiet thanks to the day, the city, and the memories. The river carried them all onward, like a song without end. For the first time, I felt entirely present, and the twilight held me, steady and warm. Rain fell softly over the empty streets, silver threads in the dim light. I walked slowly, letting each drop hit my face without resistance. Puddles reflected neon signs, distorted but beautiful. Footsteps echoed with the rhythm of the falling rain. Somewhere a distant saxophone played, blending with the drizzle. I hummed along quietly, letting the notes mix with the storm. The city smelled of wet asphalt and coffee from open windows. Memories of her surfaced, gentle and fleeting. I didn't chase them. I let them pass like raindrops on glass. Each one carried laughter, sunlight, and golden afternoons. And I realized some storms are meant to cleanse, not drown. I paused under a street lamp, watching the rain curve around the light. A cat darted between puddles, indifferent to the wet. I pulled my coat tighter and strummed a chord in my mind. Every drop seemed to echo a soft note of our old songs. I smiled at the rhythm of the city, imperfect, alive, and forgiving. The rain blurred the lines between past and present. I walked on, letting the melody guide me home. Each step was deliberate, yet effortless, like music itself. Somewhere, August lingered in the scent and sound. I inhaled deeply, letting it fill every corner of me. And the evening rain became my quiet companion. The guitar rested against the chair like it had been waiting for me. Fingers brushed the strings gently, remembering old patterns. The room smelled of polished wood and fading sunlight. I strummed a soft chord, letting it linger in the quiet. Notes hung in the air like invisible threads connecting past and present. Each string vibrated with memory, laughter, and rain-soaked afternoons. I hummed along, barely audible, letting the melody guide me. The city outside carried on, unaware of the small concert within. It didn't matter. The sound was mine, and everywhere at once. I played slowly, deliberately, savoring each imperfect note. And in that quiet, I felt entirely at peace. A breeze fluttered the curtains, carrying distant street noises. I added another line, soft and wandering, improvising freely. The music wasn't for anyone but the empty room and me. Yet it felt alive, speaking in a language older than words. Somewhere, I imagined her listening, smiling in silence. The notes didn't demand attention, they only existed. I played until my hands tingled, until the shadows stretched long. Each chord seemed to dissolve into the warm light around me. I rested my fingers and closed my eyes, letting it all settle. Memory, music, and quiet merged perfectly. And the guitar, patient as ever, waited for the next song.
I returned to the street where it all began. Footsteps soft on cobblestones. The cafe glowed faintly in the late afternoon light, welcoming yet quiet. I paused, letting the memories settle like dust in the golden beams. The city hummed around me, alive, imperfect, and forgiving. A breeze carried faint music from a street corner, familiar and tender. I closed my eyes, letting it weave through every corner of my mind. Every note, every shadow, every echo, they belonged to August. I smiled, not for what was lost, but for what remained. The bricks, the lights, the songs, all whispered her presence gently. And I realized that love never really leaves. It only transforms, carrying us forward with its quiet melody. I walked past the cafe, music fading behind me, city alive in soft rhythm. Sunlight reflected on puddles, shimmering like tiny golden memories. I hummed a line of the melody we once shared, slow and deliberate. The streets, The bridges, the park, everything sang softly in reply. Somewhere in August, the song lives on, endless and warm. I inhaled deeply, letting the city, the music, and the past merge. No longing, no ache, only peace, quiet, and gratitude. I turned the corner, letting the sun guide the next steps. Every moment felt connected, each breath part of the story. Somewhere, August lingered, eternal and kind. And I finally understood. Some endings are beginnings in disguise.